Hi folks, thanks very much for joining me for this week's river tutorial. What you see in the vise is a moose mane emerger. So without further ado, let's get into it. In the vise then is a Hanak H333 barbless hook. It's at size 12 and it's a fine wire hook in black nickel. The thread I'm going to be using today is from Semperfli. This is the 12-0 Nano silk, and as you can see it's black. As always with the Nano silks, first thing I'm going to do is get a touch of super glue onto the shank of the hook. Bring your thread in just behind the eye and catch that on. Now as I get about a centimetre up the shank, I'm going to pause there and remove my waste. What I'm going to do now is bring in my shuck. So what I'm using to simulate the shuck is some of this crystal flash I have here. You just need one strand. So I'll take that out, and what I'll do with this is fold it in half like so and catch it in. Just a couple of loose turns, then I can pull it so it's out of my way. Then using the crystal flash as your guide instead of the waste end of thread, you can bring thread wraps all the way down to the bottom of your fly. Now the trailing shuck, it's up to yourself. I like to leave mine fairly long, so I'm looking at around 2 centimetres. Then I just want to encourage them to splay out either side. And that's sitting not bad. Then what I've got left is this. I'll just put this to the side and use it for the next fly. Okay, the next stage then is to put our body in, and as the name of the fly suggests, we're going to be using some of this stuff. This is moose mane. It's a great material. This is not particularly a good example of moose mane. I've got a better one which I can't find. It's got some nice tan coloured fibres in it. But I've selected 3 fibres from the cape already, and I've got a white one and a couple of the blacker ones. Now I've loosely married up the tips. It doesn't matter though, because I'm going to remove the very thin end pieces and catch in those 3. It doesn't matter which order they are, unless you're going to be really pedantic about your body, but catch them in right at the base and then lock them into place. Now the reason I removed the tip ends is they're the most brittle, and when you're actually creating the body, if you've not removed the tip ends, then sometimes they can snap away as you're bringing your body material up. So it's always best just to take that out of the equation. What I'm doing now is just building the slightest of tapers into my body. So bear with me while I do this. No jokes. I could sing a song, but no. I'll just whittle on. Okay, that should do the job. Then, once I've done that, I can grab my moose mane fibres. You don't have to be overly careful, but then again, you don't want to be too harsh. Try and get them in a line and bring them round the shank of the body. Now this is quite a small fly, size 12, and usually for the demonstration purposes I'd be using a bigger hook, but I'm all out of size 10s, so I've had to resort to this size 12, which comes up quite small actually. So it's zoomed in so you can see what I'm doing. So just take your time. You don't want it snapping off, although the moose mane is pretty robust. And it creates a fantastic segmented body for this emerging fly. Now, although this is the river pattern, I have had quite a bit of success on Stillwaters with this pattern. It's worked really well. so it crosses over the divide, if you like. A few wraps in front of your material, then you can come in with your scissors. Now, normally you would get away with just leaving that. It's pretty robust, it will take quite a bit of punishment, but I like to always add a little bit of UV resin. I think what it does, it gives it that little shine and that lifelike appearance. I don't know if you've ever took the time to sit by the river, or even on a Stillwater for that matter, and you've watched an insect hatching out. You'll notice there's a sheen to the body as it's new life bursting from the shuck. So once you've got that on, simply cure that off. Make sure it is cured properly, because we're going to bring in some fibres that you don't want really to be stuck to your body. That's why I like the bone dry. It's once you've cured it, it's generally exactly where you want it to be. Okay, next we're going to add the tiniest bit of dubbing, and what I'm using here is from Troutstalker, and this is the Highland Peat. It's a very dark dubbing, and obviously, you know, depending on what you're trying to achieve, you can change the type of dubbing you're using. I'll sometimes use scruffy olive on this pattern, which works quite well. But I just thought for a wee change I would try the Highland Peat. You don't need very much dubbing, so I'm going to bring that on like so. Then I'm going to come back slightly on my fly and then bring my thread just in front of the dubbing there. That's looking pretty good, apart from that red fibre, which I'd just like to get out. I don't like that. It's too red. Is there such a thing as too red? Okay, so done that. Next we're going to bring in our wing. I'm going to be using some of this deer hair that I've got here. Now I'm going to take approximately, if I can do this on camera, about 1 centimetre of deer hair, which I've got here in my fingers. So I've taken about 1 centimetre. Next thing I'm going to do is transfer it over, and I'm going to brush that out. Now this deer hair patch that I'm working with is actually very good, and it doesn't need much brushing. Some other deer hair that you may buy, you need to really comb out the fluff, so it's important to do that. Once you've done that, you can place it into your stacker like so. Make sure it's all in there. Now with the stackers, I think I might have mentioned before, you really need to have a hard base stacker. If you've got a bit of foam or soft material to cushion it, then it's not doing its job. It needs to be hard, so when you tap down you get all them ends to fall to the bottom. So when you open up your stacker, if it's done its job, all the tips are nice and aligned for you. So I'm going to grab it with my thumb and forefinger in my left hand and take it out. Just put that to the side for now. Then I can transfer it back over to the thumb and forefinger of my right hand, and what I want to do is just pull out any of the dead ends and dress it up to the hook. That looks pretty good. So I'm going to transfer it back over once again, and then over my bin I'm just going to snip away the dead ends using my thumb and forefinger as a guide to where I snipped it. So when I was over the bin there, I just used my nail to guide where I was going to catch it in. Now before I attempt to tie the wing in, I'm just going to add a little amount of wax to give me some purchase. Now leave some room at the front. So you'll notice there is approximately 2 millimeters to the eye of the hook, and that's it. You need at least that as a minimum. So bring it over in a loose turn initially. I'm not happy with that, so I'm going to come off, lay it back on, loose turn. Once you seem happy, come through the cut ends, like so. And then once you think you've got it pinned down, you can release it. Have a look at your profile. That looks pretty good to me. And then simply clamp down and tidy up. Okay, so far so good. Next then, we've got to, we could just leave it like this, but we're not gonna. I'm going to unspin my bobbin so I get my thread flattened out. That's the beauty of the Nano silks. Even though they're really thin and strong, you can split these to create a dubbing loop. Now I don't need much dubbing. I've grabbed a tiny little bit off the Highland Peak, which I've got in my fingers here, and all I'm going to do is split my thread using the needle to the back of the thread. Now 12 O's, pretty thin, and I'm pretty old, so it takes a wee while to get that thread split. But once you've got it split, you can stick your tiny little bit of dubbing in. Doesn't take a great deal, especially with this size of fly actually. Only takes a little bit. Wind your bobbin back up, and then we'll spin that up to catch it in there nice and tight. And it just gives a really nice finish to the fly, this. You can just put a dubbing on, but what you don't get is this straggly effect at the front of the fly, which I really like. I do this with nearly all my flies that require a bit of tidying up at the front. Then the space I've left is ideal to build up the thread there. Then before I come in with my whip finish tool, I can simply add a little bit of varnish, like so. I'll get another couple of turns in there, and then with the whip finish tool I can finish the fly off. Take your thread away from the equation, then give it a little zap. Now before we call it a day, I'm just going to come in with my dubbing brush, like so. Work them fibres from the eye of the hook back to blend them in a little bit with the deer hair. And as always with these types of dry fly, before they go in my box, I'm going to give a little coat of muslin dry fly, and then I'll set it to the side and it will be ready for my river box. Although it says size 12, this is actually quite a small fly, and if it was akin to other hooks it'd probably be like at a size 14. But there you go. It's a great wee pattern. This works well in the bigger sizes. If you're going to use it on Stillwaters, I would recommend you get a stronger hook. This is a fine wire and it won't take that much punishment. Thanks very much for watching. I hope you got something out of that. If you haven't subscribed to the channel, please think about clicking that subscribe button. It would mean a great deal to me. See you next time.